All right. So now we have seen like how we can insert the data into the database using three different methods or three different approaches. Now let's take a look at how we can actually get the data from the database. All right. Actually, before that, let's first take a look at how we can actually validate the data first. Obviously, if we want to insert the data into the database, the data first must be validated. If we do not add a validation and if I hit submit, obviously if I remove the required field from here, the attribute, and if I reload the page and if I try to submit the data, so this will ultimately give us the error like the data is required, the title field is required. So now you can see that this throws an error. If else in situation we make the title field nullable, in that case if I change that and set this default value to null, and if we save that and then if I reload the page, hit continue, now the data is submitted, and which is actually we don't want. You can see like the title is null and the description is null, which we really don't want, that the empty data should be inserted into the database. So first for that, what we can do is basically we can validate the data. So on the request, we have a lot of methods. We have a method of input where we can define our key, all right, and then we can also pass the default value to that. Obviously that's just one method on that. The second method is validate. We need a validate method, all right. So this validate method accepts an array. Inside the array there are keys and values. So the key would be the name of the input field. In that case we have let's put back the required here, we have the name here, and then let's set this to as an array of string, and this should be required, it should be string, and let's say a minimum of maybe 3 characters. How about that? And lastly we could write a description for the validation for description, and obviously this could be nullable. So what we can do is basically we can place the nullable here, and if it is not null, then what we expect is that it should have a string, all right. And let's save that, and if I reload the page now, and if I let's say I again remove this required field from here, and let's reload the page one more time, and if I try to hit submit, so this will not let me pass through the validation there. So if I track the database and still we do not have any other entry. So what we can do is basically we need to display the errors so that we can actually catch those in our, or maybe display our here top here, so that the user should be able to know like how we can actually like what the errors are we are generating, all right. So to do so, what we need to do is basically we need to check if there are any errors. So how we can actually get the errors? So the error will be the global variable that will be available, so we can check if there are any errors, then so this will give us an array of errors. So what we can do is basically we can run the for each loop on errors. So at the rate for each $errors, and we can get all errors, all right. And then obviously we can set this as $error, and obviously we we have a typo here. So now what we can do is basically we can for example, let's say I define the UL here, and down below the UL again I should copy this here as well, and then the li. So inside the li we need to display the error, All right. So now if we go back and reload the page and hit submit, so now you see that we have an error that title field is required. Okay. So what we can get here, so what we can do is here, let's now fill the title. So it should be like testing, and we can leave this description as it is. So now it should be saved, and there we go. What else we can do here is basically, if we want that the title should be unique, we can also apply that validation rule here. So I will just do that. Obviously we don't want the title should be unique. Instead of that, we have to generate the slug. So we will see like how we can generate the slug, but as of now, let's see how we can actually set the title to unique. So there is a validation rule called unique, and this should be unique on table called posts, and it should match the title. All right. Now if I come back, reload the page, let's go back, reload the page and try to fill the testing one more time. If I try to hit, now you can see like it says the title has already been taken. Okay, so far we have learned like how we can actually store the data in different forms and how we can apply the validations. Lastly, before moving forward, let's check how we can actually generate this slug. So I will name this slug here the column, and let's create another column in after the title. So after title, it should be slug, and we can set this to as varchar, and that should be 255 characters, and default should be none. So this is required. So how we can generate the slug there? So it's pretty easy. str, we can use the helper function of the Laravel provided to us. Okay, so this should be str, and that str should be illuminate support /str, and then it should generate the slug for us. So the slug will contains the request, input, title, and then we can also pass the second parameter, which is the separator, like so. And then what also we can do is basically we can set this slug. Obviously we are not getting the slug from front end, so we don't need that here. Now if I go back, reload the page, and let's say testing 1 2 3 ABC, so for with spaces, just a random check, and now if I check, we should have a slug generated. Now you can see that it says like testing -123 ABC. So this is basically what we asked it, like the separator should be this one. All right, so we now have seen how we can apply the validation on the form before we actually save them into the database, and then we can also generate the slugs by using the str method, the helper function. Obviously this contains a lot of more apart from the slug, so it also contains the title and contains method and much more. You can explore that obviously on the Laravel main documentation. But now let's see how we can actually get all the records from the database and display them on our main posts page here.